The morning of my wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the moment my heart completely shattered right in front of everyone I loved. My name is Emma, and for as long as I can remember, I lived trapped in my younger sister Olivia's shadow. No matter what happened, no matter how hard I worked, she was always my father's favorite. When Olivia got good grades, Dad celebrated for weeks. But when I brought home perfect scores, he simply nodded coldly and changed the subject. At first, I tried to convince myself that I was just imagining things. But as the years passed, the painful pattern became impossible to ignore. Still, I spent my entire life trying to earn his approval, hoping that just once, he would look at me with real pride. When I got engaged to Daniel, a tiny part of me hoped things would finally change. I genuinely thought my wedding would be the day my father looked at me and truly saw me as his daughter. For months, I planned every single detail with so much care. The flowers, the venue, the music, the dress. Despite all the past pain, I wanted my father involved. I wanted him to walk me down the aisle. The big day finally arrived, and everything looked beautiful. I stood in the bridal suite, staring at my reflection in the mirror, feeling hopeful for the first time in years. Then my phone rang. It was my father. "Emma, there's been a situation," he said. My stomach instantly tightened. "What happened?" I asked. "It's Olivia," he replied. Of course it was. Even on my wedding day, she came first. She needs me right now. The ceremony was less than an hour away, and then he said the words that will haunt me forever. "I'm going to stay with Olivia. She's having an incredibly difficult day." I could barely breathe, my chest aching. "So am I whispered into the phone. But he had already made his choice, just like he always had. He hung up, leaving me alone in my tears. Until everything changed. Because a complete stranger was about to walk into my life and expose a deep truth my father never wanted me to see. As I stood there sobbing, the door of the bridal suite slowly opened. I thought it was Daniel coming to check on me, but it wasn't. It was an elderly man in a sharp, elegant suit, holding an old leather briefcase. He looked at my tear-stained face with a gentle, sympathetic expression and asked softly, "Are you Emma?" I nodded slowly, wiping my face. He sighed and said, "My name is Arthur. I was your late grandfather's personal lawyer. I have been looking for you for a very long time, Emma. Your father told me you had moved abroad years ago, but today I finally found the truth. And it is time you know the real truth about your family as well." Arthur walked inside, quietly closing the door behind him. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a heavy document that looked decades old. "Your grandfather knew exactly how your father treated you," Arthur said, his voice filled with emotion. "Before he passed away, he didn't leave the family wealth to your father. He left everything to you. The house, the family business, the entire inheritance. It was all meant for you, Emma." My heart stopped, and the world around me went completely silent. My grandfather had left everything to me? But why didn't I know? Arthur continued, "Your father was legally required to hand this over to you on your 20th birthday. But he hid it from you. He signed forged documents to secretly transfer all that wealth to Olivia." The realization hit me like a wave of freezing water. My father didn't just love Olivia more. He had actively stolen my entire future just to secure hers. The reason he was always so cold to me, the reason he could never look me in the eye, wasn't dislike, it was pure guilt. And today, on the exact day he abandoned me, the truth had finally found its way home. I looked at the legal papers in my trembling hands, and the emotional pain was blinding. My own family had destroyed my trust, treating me like an outsider while living in total luxury off the comfort that rightfully belonged to me. But as I stared at my grandfather's neat signature, something deep inside me shifted. The tears stopped falling. The pain turned into a quiet, burning strength. I was no longer the helpless, broken girl waiting for a father's love. "Is this legally binding right now?" I asked Arthur, my voice surprisingly steady and calm. He smiled faintly and nodded. "Yes, Emma. The original will is right here. Your father's transfers to Olivia are completely illegal. If you sign these authorization papers today, we can legally reclaim everything that belongs to you by tomorrow morning." I turned and looked out the window. The guests were arriving in beautiful clothes, and Daniel was waiting for me at the altar with a nervous smile. My father thought he had left me broken, humiliated, and completely alone in this room. He had no absolute idea that his entire empire was about to crumble to pieces. I took a deep, steady breath, picked up the pen, and firmly signed my name. "Thank you, Arthur," I said. "Please initiate the legal process immediately. Do not wait another hour." He bowed his head respectfully and left the room. I walked back to the mirror, adjusted my veil, and looked at the powerful woman staring back at me. She wasn't broken anymore. She was ready. I walked down the aisle alone, with my head held high and a bright smile. Daniel looked at me with so much pure love in his eyes, and in that beautiful moment, I realized I didn't need my father's approval to be happy. I had a beautiful life ahead, and very soon, I would have my justice. The wedding was absolutely beautiful, but the real storm arrived the very next morning. I was sitting at breakfast with Daniel, enjoying our first day as husband and wife, when my phone rang. It was my father. But his voice wasn't calm or distant anymore. He was screaming in total panic. "Emma, what on earth did you do?" he shouted through the phone, his voice shaking. "The bank has completely frozen all of our accounts. There are legal authorities at the house right now, and they are telling us we have to pack up and leave. They say everything belongs to you." I kept my voice perfectly calm and relaxed. "Good morning, Dad. I see Arthur has delivered the official paperwork." "How could you do something so cruel to your own sister?" he yelled desperately. Olivia is in tears. "You are completely destroying this family." I smiled faintly, though my heart felt heavy with the finality of it all. "You destroyed this family the exact moment you stole my inheritance, Dad. And you chose to destroy it completely when you abandoned me on my wedding day. You wanted to stay with Olivia so badly? Well, now you can stay with her forever. But you will do it in a small house that you actually have to pay for." He tried to speak, to stammer out apologies and excuses, but I simply hung up the phone. For years, I had begged for his attention, but now he was the one begging for mine. Within a few short weeks, justice was fully and beautifully served. The family business and the mansion were legally returned to my name. My father and Olivia had no choice but to move into a tiny, rented apartment on the edge of town. Olivia had to get a real job for the very first time in her pampered life, and my father finally had to face the harsh reality of his selfish actions. They tried to contact me multiple times, sending long, emotional messages full of regrets, but I remained distant. I didn't hate them, but I knew that some broken bonds are simply meant to stay broken. I chose to sell the old family mansion and use that wealth to build a peaceful, beautiful life with Daniel. Looking back, I realized that my wedding day was indeed the day my life changed forever, just not in the way I had initially expected. It was the day I finally stopped looking for love in places where it simply didn't exist. Sometimes, life has to break you completely just to show you how incredibly strong you truly are. I lost a father that day, but I finally found my own worth. And in the end, that was the greatest wedding gift of all.